Hi, this is Paul White from LaGrange, Illinois, and I play at Mountain Shadows in Scottsdale, Arizona. This is Golf Smarter number 960.
Wedges don't come with a user manual, and they should. Where you got the front edge of the club and the back edge of the club, and different lies will determine when you need to use a bit more of the front edge. Different lies will determine when you need to use a little bit more of the back edge, when you need to dig a bit more, when you need to play a bit more with the back edge, which is what I call the bounce, the back edge. So make sure you give yourself in your dress position, depending on the lie and the shot, the best opportunity to execute the shot. It starts with that. If you're on a certain line and you're not setting up to it properly, you may feel yippy when in fact you're not being able to pull off the shot, when in fact you're just not utilizing the club properly. That would be the first thing I would check from a technique standpoint. What's the lie doing? How do I use this club? And don't be afraid to go experiment. Again, there's not right or wrong. There's more efficient ways to do it, but don't be afraid to go out and hit different chips and experiment with the ball being up, experiment with the ball being back, experiment with an open face, a closed face. So I would do that. And then second is be aware of what you're mindful of during the motion.
Debunking the myths on the roll of your wrists during the swing with Kelvin Kelley.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Kelvin.
Yeah, Fred, thanks for having me back on.
It's great to have you back on. How's your podcast going?
Hey, it's doing well. We got kickstarted with your help. You remember you were nice enough to kind of show me the ropes and get the ball going on. You were tremendous help, and I had a few others help me out, and it's been fun. Do about one a month, maybe two a month, and just reaching out to other people in the golf business, and always listening to yours for ideas. Sometimes I steal some of your guests after they've been on your show. But
like who? Good. Wait a minute. Who?
Shouldn't say stealing, but I'll get ideas for
Hey,
people.
Listen, people are like, oh, I'll be on a podcast. Okay. So like what people have we both had on the show?
Yeah, people love being on a podcast.
They do.
Yeah.
So like, tell me what topics you've had with which guests.
See, Carl Morris, you've had on yours, who I've had on mine
so
as well.
Good.
Yeah, he's actually coming back on tomorrow.
Okay.
With me. It'll be good. Yeah. I always love talking golf with him and the performance side, because he just covers everything from, the mental side of it to performing on the golf course. There's a lot of good life stuff too. We talk about what books he's been reading and all that. So he's always a good chat. Seems like it could go 3 hours. I've had Gary Edwin on, the Australian teacher, talk a little bit more golf swing. I've had Sean Foley on, talked stoicism, actually, from an article I wrote on Golf WRX. Gary Nickel, co-author, he's been on your show, co-authored Lost Art of Putting, Lost Art of Playing Golf. I've had Bradley Hughes, popular golf instructor right now, both online, teaches a bunch of tour players. So I've done about 30 episodes, I think.
Well, it's interesting. It's a very different approach than what I'm doing, obviously, because you're an instructor and talking to instructors. Do you get deep into the weeds, or do you try to keep it on a level where it's for the everyman golfer?
Yeah, it's a good question. It is definitely a bit different. To be honest, it's kind of for me. I know that kind of...
This is for me too, so I totally get it.
It sounds a bit selfish, but no, I just figured, I got a lot of... been in golf since I was 15. I'm 39. I got a lot of good golf connections. I was figured, why not just ask other people in the business just golf questions I would want to know, whether or not it's about the swing, how to get better on the golf course. And I figured I'd just tape the conversation and see where it goes. So it's kind of weird juggling, like how much when I'm in a conversation with somebody, like I do got to remember, people want to listen to it. So it's been kind of a mental battle, I guess you could say, thinking how much of it should be for me and how much do people would actually, would want to listen to it. So it's kind of difference in motivation, I guess, but trying to find a balance between the two. But it's kind of for me, and which other people like to listen to, it seems.
Yeah. And I think that's the key to this, at least if I were to give any advice at all. It would be just, if it's about you, make it about you, and people will appreciate the honesty. Don't try to pander to somebody or an audience, because you got to remember on podcasts, and we may have discussed this, people only listen by themselves. People rarely listen to a podcast in a group. They watch TV in a group. They go to a movie in a group. But when it comes to podcasts, it's a very intimate experience because they're usually wearing headphones or earbuds. So you're inside their head. So you just want to communicate on a one-to-one level. And if it's about you, keep it about you and they'll relate. They'll empathize with you on that.
Yeah, I never really thought about them listening to it solo. I mean, it's a good point.
Yeah. And are you guys, well, first of all, what's the name of your podcast?
Pretty simple. It's the Kelvin Kelley Golf Podcast.
Okay.
Kind of sounds a bit intense, but yeah.
That's okay. You're a golf instructor. You should put your name on it. That's why I took my face off of my podcast artwork. It's like, I'm not giving instruction. Why is my face on here? It's like, it's not about that. I want to put other people's faces on it because they're giving the instruction. They're the experts. I'm the student. Right?
Yeah, I originally had some other names. I think I started off with Better Than Most, but I kept changing and ended up with Kelvin Kelley Golf Podcast just because it's the conversation we just had. It was my conversations, and all the other names sounded like I was, trying to promote something or that it was about a certain topic. And when it's about all kinds of different topics in the golf business.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I'm glad. So does this fall into like golf instruction for you in the podcast? Because I know you have strong feelings about online golf instruction. So how do you avoid getting caught in that in your podcast?
Well, I just don't have all the online guys on my own podcast. Yeah, it's more. I guess maybe it's a bit old school in the sense that I love reading. It's my hobby outside of golf. That and my diehard Las Vegas Raider fans, old Oakland Raider fans. So I love reading. So I'm starting to get some authors on my podcast from books that I have enjoyed reading from the past. Not related to golf, sure, not directly golf books. I just had Dr. Anna Lemke on. She's the author of Dopamine Nation. She's actually a professor down at Stanford. So kind of relatable to golf in terms of how the brain works. So just a book I enjoyed. And then if you've gone down the road of golf performance, if you read the book, you definitely see some correlation between the two with the title sums up the book, just how dopamine works in our brain and how we get it. So super interesting read. So it's a little bit, and I just talked to her to kind of combine it with golf. So maybe a bit different than what you would see with most kind of online podcasts or even instruction. Like we were chatting before, I'm kind of staying away from doing the online lessons and just seeing how much it's how popular it has become. Although it is very convenient for people, there's just a lot of current fads and instruction that people take and spew it out there trying to get followers. It ends up being, just shit content, to be honest, and makes golfers worse. So I've been trying to avoid going down that road.
So let's talk about the things that frustrate you about, like we're not talking about YouTube videos, are we? We're talking about people who are like sending videos to instructors and letting them, like doing remote instruction. Is that what frustrates you on online golf instruction?
I don't know. It maybe even frustrates a bit of an overkill. No, I think the YouTube stuff's pretty bad too, to be honest. It's like the Tiger Woods. It's like the Tiger Woods line, right? Stay away from YouTube.
Tiger. Oh, yeah. But have you seen Tiger Talks?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So there's a couple videos. They're made by TaylorMade. And it's Tiger. My favorite one is Tiger and Colin Morikawa talking about the short game.
Oh, that stuff is pretty good. Yeah.
And it's almost as if Colin is interviewing Tiger about things that he does, how he plays short game shots and whatnot. And there's many times during this that Colin's like, wow, I never knew that. And I'm like, wait a minute, you've won multiple majors. What do you mean you didn't know that? And you're learning something new. It's really, really compelling. Another one that I watched was Tiger, Rory, and Nelly Corda on driving.
Okay.
And
that stuff is awesome.
Awesome. Tiger Talks.
There's actually a tailor-made one with Tiger, Rory, and Jason Day, I think. It's like 45 minutes. They're talking about short game, hitting different shots around the green, just like a casual conversation. That stuff is an exception. That stuff's completely different. That
It really
I will say,
is.
that stuff is fascinating, how they mic them up. And like I will say, Bryson DeChambeau's channel is pretty sweet.
And look what it's done for his life.
I know. That's pretty, well, that's where golf's going, right?
Changed his personality. I talked to Matt Janella a couple of weeks ago about this, about Bryson and what impact it's had on his personality and presentation. I mean, the way he presented himself after he won the major was like really impressive.
Mm-hmm. He's got a good PR team.
Yeah. He's got a team, lots of strong people on Ud's team left and right. I mean, everywhere.
No, his channel is pretty sweet. That is the one I do watch. And the mic'd up tour players with the short game and putting is actually, I have my students listen to some of that just to show them how many different ways there are for the short game shots. But in my opinion, that's almost anti kind of what I meant about the online golf instruction world, where somebody will put a short game guru and this is my chipping method and this has to be done this way and everything else doesn't work, so follow my program. So I would say that YouTube stuff is almost complete opposite of the stuff that, like we were chatting about before, it gets to me a bit and tends to screw up my students, or even the full swing of, here's my academy, do it this way and that's right and that's wrong, and shallow the club this way, and it's all like the same stuff over and over. Different animal of YouTube stuff.
One of the things that really cracks me up actually is we can fix your slice in 5 swings. We can, just watch this video and in 5 swings with nobody helping you, no one showing you how to do it, touching you. I mean, you're a hands-on instructor and you prefer it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now the biggest, I still like to look, I'm on the algorithm, so a bit of a hypocrite. I spend way too much on Instagram. I try and monitor how much I'm on it, but I ended up, what do you call it when you're passively scrolling when you don't even realize it? I work on it, but I'm definitely guilty of it. So I do listen to a lot of stuff. Like I said, listen to your podcast and other podcasts, but you just got to filter it. It's all the shallowing the club now, right? You hop on Instagram and it's 10 different ways to shallow the club, and just no real teaching on how the body works and understanding origin and getting to the root of how to fix it. And they're all, I almost think they're method teachers. I know everybody thinks they're not a method teacher, but that's their method. They're all teaching the same thing. It's all video taped down the line. It's all shallow obsession. And then it's all the same stuff.
What do you mean by shallow obsession?
Just there's every 2 to 3 years there's fads in the golf business.
Right.
I think right now it's just shallowing the club, or I'm holding the club. It'll be published in the video where the shaft's steep and it shallows this way. I think the George Jankus, which he got really popular online teaching a few years ago, I think that was the start of it. So that's kind of the main fad right now online. Everybody thinks they have to be super shallow with the club, or the trail arm has to be in a certain position, and which it's actually extremely beneficial to have the club a bit more shallow, but there's a bit more to it in terms of how the body works. And say 2 years, maybe 3 years ago, prior to the shallow, is the early extension. Right, all my students saying I can't have my butt come off the wall. TPI started that one about 4 or 5 years ago, and that's now basically been debunked. Well, you can early extend. That's completely okay. Probably bad for your back if you do try and keep your butt back. So no, it's just interesting hearing students that keep up with that stuff come in and say, oh, what about this? That person said that, or I saw on this Instagram post, it's bad to keep my butt back, or it has to come in this way. And it's like, no, more to it.
So what do you find to be the most popular myths that people are coming to you with when you're giving one-on-one instruction and they're saying, well, I watched this video and he tells me I should be doing this. What are the things that you're like, okay, thank you for sharing that, but it is so not for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say I can answer that too. I would say for beginners and experienced players or scratch players. Sure. Yeah, totally. For beginners, and that one's no brainer. It's the classic. Keep your head down in the golf swing. That's a killer. keeping your head down, trying to keep your eye on the ball, looking at the ball, and that's why everybody kind of looks like that after they hit it. Now your face has to go with your body in the golf swing, like it would with any sport. Hitting a tennis ball, a tennis racket in my hand, my head's going to go that way. Throwing a ball, people just think beginners or people starting out when they top the ball or mishit it, they have the sensation that their head might have gone early, so they perceive that they didn't keep their head down long enough. When it's a fake feel, that's not really what's going on. So I'd say beginners, a common myth or misconception is keep your head down. You definitely don't have to keep your head down, and you're definitely not going early. The head needs to actually go with the body. I get some people that even feel like they're looking early. It gets their body to move better through the shot. So that's definitely the first one. That's like a 90% chance somebody comes in with that one right out of the gate.
Now, when you say a beginner, could that also fill in for somebody who's, say, a 15 to 25 or 20?
Totally, yeah, totally. Actually, just beginner. Yeah, I've had 15, 16 index players, handicap players say the same thing. Yeah, so I would say that one rings is common, not just with beginners, but kind of pretty much all. I'm going to say scratch golfers if I had to categorize it, but not flat out beginners, but I hear that one more. And the second one is keep the arm straight. That's up there with keep your head down. Keep the left arm, keep your lead arm dead straight and rigid in the golf swing. I'd say that's the second killer or most common.
On the backswing or on the entire swing?
I would say entire swing, but definitely on the backswing. You don't have to keep talking for a right-handed golfer. You don't need to keep your left arm straight in the golf swing. It's actually more detrimental than beneficial. You don't play any sport with straight arms. You don't throw a ball with straight arms. You don't shoot a basketball, throw a football, throw a baseball. Any sport that I know of with straight arms. In golf, you don't need to either. It actually will hinder how you move. Sometimes people will see their left arm on video and they'll see it collapsed or too much bending. But usually there's an origin to that. It's usually more times than not, it's actually the trail arm not working properly, which makes that lead arm soft and too bent. But they'll try and fix that by keeping their left arm straight. And then you're trying to keep that rigid and straight. It's an uphill battle. You'll see a lot of tour players with it looking straight on camera for sure. Some will be slightly bent, some will look straight, but they're by no means intentionally keeping it locked and straight. And different physiology too. Some people have a hyperextended left arm, different physiology. So rarely is somebody trying to keep that. Well, I should say rarely, never is somebody trying to keep that left arm hyperextended through the swing. You can't move.
Right, you can't rotate, right?
Yeah, I understand. You just can't swing your arms, way you can't swing your body.
No, I'm very curious about this. As far as the left arm for right-handed golfer, do you want to keep it straight for a certain amount of time and then let it move a little more as you get farther back, or that's not relevant at all? It's all about the trail arm.
I would say it's relevant, but doesn't need to be directly addressed, is a good way to put it. Generally speaking, I keep soft arms. I call them catching arms. Like in the video here, I'm just putting my arms out like you're throwing me a basketball or I'm catching an impact bag. If I were to catch it, both my arms would look like this, where they're both double arm bent. So they're both really almost at 90 degrees here. And if I get my arm structure proper, my right shoulder below my left, since we grip the right hand below the left in the golf swing, naturally our right shoulder should be a bit more below our left. And then when I get my arm structure like this a bit, then it'll look straight, but it's still got some bend to it. Like I said, if you have a hyperextended left arm, it'll look rigid and straight. But then if you get your right arm to work properly and your body to work efficiently, and you keep the radius the same. Radius is how far the hands are from the body and the club head. That arm should actually take care of itself. So I never have to have somebody think about keeping the arm same flex. If anything, it'll be the opposite. If people are too wide with their golf swing, because that's going back to YouTube, it's commonly taught is take it back wide as you can. And people take it back wide like that, it'll actually get narrow at the top. This one, that arm will get collapsed. So I actually almost teach the opposite, where I'll get people to feel at times, depending on the player, I'll get players to feel almost a bent left arm throughout their backswing, because I know that'll look like that with speed, because your muscles elongate when you make the motion dynamic. So my feeling will be this soft, almost the people that don't have video, it almost look alligator armed-ish, funky, like a couldn't break 100, but that feel with speed will look extended and my arm will look straight. So just a difference between feel and reality, and what you feel at slow motion compared to what happens when the motion becomes dynamic.
But there's other parts of the arm. Let's break this down even further. The upper arm, right? So like I, in watching you describe that, and you talk about people reaching out, all of a sudden now their body's not straight anymore. They're like swaying back and forth here, right? Which is obviously a big problem. But what about the upper arm? I mean, we've heard a lot about, I've seen Gary Player talk about this on video, and we had Tony Manzoni talk about this a lot, about keeping that left arm or your left upper arm, your bicep, kind of attached to your pec, right, to your chest. Tell me your thoughts on where the upper arm is in that backswing.
Yeah, good question. It's all, see where I start with this one. Yeah, at address, I'll call it my bicep, tricep, my top of my arms, keep it simple. At address, I like to see with those soft, I call them throwing arms, not so much bent arms, because that kind of spooks people. Throwing arms or spaghetti arms, to me, are those soft arms, can be moved quickly like this, like I'm throwing a ball with some speed. At address, I usually like to see, there are some exceptions, but I usually like to see the top of the arms, we'll say in my case, my biceps and my triceps touching my pecs. I hate the word connected, because it's not, when I think, at least in my mind, when I think connected, I think, okay, my top of my arms are touching my chest, and then I'm going to keep it connected and everything's going to move together. And that's not really a dynamic motion when I'm trying to keep my top of my arm connected to my chest and I make everything move back at the same time. If I start with my soft throwing arms and I get that club head moving first, my arms will actually, you see in the video here, and I'll try and explain it the best I can for people that don't have video. When I'm swinging my arms around me this way, my arms are actually pulling my shoulders, which then pulls my chest around. So it is still connected. My left arm is still touching, say, my bicep and my tricep at the top of the swing. Just the sequence was a bit different than, say, trying to keep it connected. Basically, I'm not a fan of the one-piece takeaway. I mean, it's a better way to explain it, where if I grip it here and everything's moving together, most people listening to this podcast could probably picture a one-piece takeaway. It's never made sense, because when does that one piece stop, and when does the club head keep going? And the second you grip this club, the club becomes a part of you, and that club head is the furthest point away from your body. So I just don't see how that can't not move first. The club head, it's got to travel the greatest distance if you're looking at me face on. So I'm getting the club head going there, and I'm swinging the shaft, and my arms are moving, and it's moving my shoulders. So, and that's what I call a turn in the golf swing. I don't really use the word turn. It's too subjective. I don't know if we chatted about that the first time I was on your podcast. Maybe not. I call the golf swing a throw or a coil, where I can see the lat here face on. When I hear the word turn, I think of everything turning together, like I'm turning around to talk to somebody.
Rotating,
I look at it more of a throw. If I'm swinging my arm up, my body's going around a bit this way. I mean, kinematically speaking, this isn't my opinion. It's actually a fact. I had Dr. Mark Bull on my podcast, not to plug in my own, but
no, that's fine.
Yeah, anatomically speaking, if I just stood here and just swung my arms up, for the people that are on the video, I'm holding my chest in one spot. I'm not trying to turn my rib cage. If I just swung my arms up with my soft arms this way, that's a shoulder turn. So this here, when my left arm goes across my chest, that's moving my shoulder. This here, where I'm moving my upper body, obviously my shoulders are moving in space, but that's not a shoulder turn. That's being governed or engined by my chest. I call it rib cage. By definition, it would be the thorax. But so somebody would look at that and say, that's not a turn. And I say it is. That's a shoulder turn. And then I go that way, and that's my throwing motion. And that's a turn or a coil, not so much the one piece where I might as well stick the club in my belly and swing it like that. It's not the golf motion isn't a belly putter golf swing. It's a dynamic throw. So I have different definition of the word turn. So it's a fascinating subject, and there's always more than one way to get it done. I've always appreciated how other people do get it done with, say, some swings outside the norm, or even cookie cutter swings. So just my opinion on what a turn is, maybe a bit different than what most people think of it as.
All right. Now, what about the wrist? I mean, if we're going to stay with the left arm here, and I really love digging into this, well, we've talked about the arm, we've talked about the upper arm. Now let's talk about the wrist and the wrist cock. On the forward arm for a right-handed golfer would be your left arm. So I have a tendency to bend my wrist back, and I'm trying desperately these days to not do that, to try to keep it, I look at Dennis John, DJ doing it, and it's like he's almost scratching his back the way he's got his wrist turned.
Yeah, it's 100% dependent on what your grip is at address and what the club head's doing going back. So if you have a strong, sort of have to look at your grip to see if that's the right potential fixer, if you're going down the right path there. If I have an extremely strong grip, I turn my left hand over like a Dustin Johnson, where I see, I'm not going to use him as an example because he's an outlier. I'll explain that in a bit. But if I have an extremely strong grip, I turn my left hand over. I'm starting with a lot of cup. I call it cup or angle there between the back of my left hand and the bottom of my forearm. So if I take that cup with my strong grip and then bow my wrist angle straight or flat or bowed, well, that's going to shut the face down. And that's actually what Dustin Johnson does. He has extremely cupped wrist to start, strong grip, and then he bows it shut. He gets his wrist, his wrist is bowed and flat, and that shuts the face. So with that bowed wrist from a cupped address position with a shut face, he has a different matchup with his body coming down. That's why he has to look like he's clearing hard with his body and then holding on to it through the impact. Then he lets it go, and he almost has that flippy looking wrist motion well after the ball is gone. So now conversely, if it's completely okay to have extremely strong grip, and starting with a lot of cup and still having a lot of cup at the top. That's just retaining your wrist angle. If I went to, say, a neutral grip, where there's a little bit of angle, I mean, ideally like to see that just staying the same at the top. So that angle at the top of my left hand, or back of my left hand, bottom of my forearm is the exact same as it was at address. And then more times than not, it'll actually come down bowed, just the natural change of direction. Well, that's another thing too, is how is it coming down? So people get caught with it. What does it look like at the top? But is it coming down bowed? Is it coming down the same? And I definitely don't want it coming down with more cup. And I've seen people go, I'm trying to keep my left wrist straight, and they look bowed this way, and then it comes down that way, and it comes down up. So obviously more to it. So, but the main takeaways that people listening can take away is it just depends on your grip, and depends what the club face is doing. Now, if I have an extremely weak grip where I'm not seeing a whole lot of knuckles on my left hand, well, that tends to be more bowed at the top. If you think of a John Rahm, John Rahm has Colin Morikawa. They both have extremely weak grips, so not very many knuckles on their left hand. So just the forces in the golf swing, that's going to make the left wrist look bowed. So you can't have a weak grip and then add cup. That face is going to be too open. So people will look at Colin Morikawa's bowed wrist, or John Rahm, or even Jordan Spieth, and their bowed wrists are completely different than, say, a Dustin Johnson bowed wrist or player X. It's all dependent on the grip and on what the face is doing. But generally speaking, I mean, I just like the wrist angles to be the same. So I don't see why they should have to change, or if anything, maybe a bit cup to bowed in terms of the lead wrist.
Interesting. And what is the right arm doing in all of this at that time?
Yeah, well, I feel if you start efficiently, going back to the right shoulder being below the left, and you have this right arm in a bit of a tucked position at addressed, that's what we're trying to get back to at impact. A tucked position, if you can just picture somebody pushing, you can just picture pushing a wall from a standing position, pushing a wall with your right hand or up against the wall, how that gets your right arm in a bent position. When I get into that arm structure in that right elbow position, that creates a bit of angle in my bottom right wrist, hence that pushing motion with my right hand. And when I get that right wrist angle and I get my arm structure and I get that club head going first, I'm keeping that wrist angle, that natural wrist angle in my right hand throughout the swing. So it's dependent on the start, just a little bit like the grip. If and again, more ways to get it done, but if I start very level at address with my shoulders dead square and the club in the middle of me, if you can just picture that, well then I'm more than likely, dependent on the grip, not going to have a lot of angle in my right wrist. So if I do add some wrist set, well then I'm going to be creating a bit more angle. So you have to look at the whole story with what they start with, what the grip is like, what the ball is doing, what the club face is doing throughout the swing.
And we're talking about a full swing. We're not talking about a short, wedge shot. Are we?
Full swing, and plenty of good players too will change their grip on a short game shot as well. Yeah. So
the thing I've been struggling a lot with lately, and I don't know why, because there were times in my playing career where I was like nailing it every time, are these 15-yard and less shots to the green, where I seem to be taking these great little practice swings, making sure I'm nice and slow, trying to hit the ball on the ground, and then I go to take my swing and I'm sculling it, or I'm just chunking it, hitting way behind the ball, or I'm hitting it in the middle of the ball and it's just skirts all the way across the green. Help. I mean,
yeah.
Give me some online instruction on that one, Kelvin.
Yeah. First, I would say make sure you know how to use the club properly. If I'm using a chip shot or a pitch shot, make sure you understand and do your research. And there's a lot of good stuff online with this on the makeup of the club. It's like Gary Nickel, you had on your show, said that wedges don't take this line from him. Wedges don't come with a user manual, and they should. We've got the front edge of the club and the back edge of the club, and different lies will determine when you need to use a bit more of the front edge. Different lies will determine when you need to use a little bit more of the back edge, when you need to dig a bit more, when you need to play a bit more with the back edge, which is what I call the bounce, the back edge. So make sure you give yourself in your dress position, depending on the lie and the shot, the best opportunity to execute the shot. So it starts with that. If you're on a certain line and you're not setting up to it properly, you may feel yippy when in fact and not being able to pull off the shot when in fact you're just not using the club properly. So that would be the first thing I would check from a technique standpoint. What's the lie doing? How do I use this club? And don't be afraid to go experiment. Again, there's not right or wrong. There's more efficient ways to do it, but don't be afraid to go out and hit different chips and experiment with the ball being up, experiment with the ball being back, experiment with an open face, a closed face. So I would do that. And then second is, if people ever get a bit jittery over the ball, is be aware of what you're mindful of during the motion. Pay attention to where your attention is. Meaning, what am I holding on to in my mind when I'm making that pitching motion? Is it bouncing around thinking don't chunk it, don't thin it, which is obviously not going to be very productive? Or am I able to hold my attention on where I'm landing the ball? Am I able to hold the image of the trajectory of the pitch? In my case, I like it a bit more internal. Or I like to feel my arms carrying my body around. So I'll walk in with that motion once I decide the shot, where I'm going to swing my arms back and I'm going to let my arms collect my body on the way through, and I'll use that once I program that motion. I'll use that motion over the ball, and I'll practice it, and I'll be mindful of being able to hold that motion in my mind so my body can properly do it. So I find when people are a bit jittery over the ball or get a bit yippy if the technique is good, it's more of a mindful issue where it's it's kind of a form of meditation where you got to get good at being able to hold your attention on one thing for a second, 2 seconds. And it's hard. And you practice by going for a walk. And I got tested this way where somebody asked me to go for a walk in my out here in San Francisco, and how far can I walk feeling my feet touching the ground before my mind went sideways and thought about something else. Little things like that can actually improve your chipping and pitching.
And how many steps?
I can do about 2 before my mind goes elsewhere.
Oh,
It's
wow.
hard.
There's no way I can go that long.
Yeah. And it's pretty
2
cool.
steps, forget it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating subject. It could be going out and just listening to your song or paying attention to your surroundings. But just being able to hold something in your mind when there's other distractions going on, and there's other direct distractions going on when you're putting on a putting green. You got people hovering over you, watching you. You're nervous. You don't want to miss a short putt, or you don't want to chunk your pitch, and you get good at narrowing your focus of attention and being able to retain it.
Dude, I really appreciate these insights and I hate to say lessons. I know this is really going to be helpful. I'm going to listen to this multiple times because it's going to help me out a lot. I want to make a turn now and talk about in your bag, the clubs in your bag. And I start with a topic that I've been noticing a lot of conversation about lately. I don't know if you have an opinion or not and what your opinion would be, but mini drivers. Seeing a lot of people talk about that they struggle with the driver off the tee, but they're pretty good with their 3-wood, and this could be a good solution. Or is this like Jim Waldron said recently to us about, yeah, that's for the better players only. Don't worry about it. If you're a mid-handicap player. Tell me your thoughts on mini driver.
That's a good question. I haven't been asked that one. Well, my first instinct would say get better at hitting your driver. Come in for a lesson. Let's figure your driver out.
Right.
The game's a lot easier when you're closer to the hole off the tee and
get fitted.
Yeah, that too. That'll help, or at least get proper clubs. I find all the clubs now are extremely shut, especially for higher handicap players, and I think that works against you because most people hit the ball right, so the manufacturer makes the club shut, and then it works against you because you're trying to open the face up. I think, and you end up slicing it. I think if you have a square face or even an open face, which you would think would make the ball go right, but then you learn to hook it from there, and it'll actually long term make your swing a bit better. Yeah, the mini driver, I haven't really thought about that one. I mean, the 3-wood's going to be a bit straighter for people just because there's more loft on the club. So when there's more loft, the ball's going to go a bit straighter. There's more spin on it, and the club's an inch shorter. So generally speaking, someone's going to be a bit more straighter with their 3-wood, and the driver is going to expose the miss or with their pattern in the golf swing because it's a longer club and there's less loft. So it's tough to come into the ball steep and across it, which most higher handicappers do, as opposed to coming into the ball around and I guess quote unquote shallow. But yeah, I mean it's a good middle ground if you are struggling with your driver. I haven't seen one in a while actually. I know they were popular. TaylorMade had one a few years back that was showing up. I think Titleist had one a few years back. I think that they're a bit smaller in the head, right, than the normal driver.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think
as expensive as clubs
TaylorMade, I think is back out with a new version of the mini driver, and that it is a little bit bigger than a 3-wood as far as the head size, but smaller than a driver, and they're using 21st century 2024 technology in club head design to get you. And a shorter shaft to really be able to launch the ball well and hit it far. And for some, it's replacing a driver because they can get it in the fairway more often and still get good distance on it. And the shorter shaft, I think, improves that a lot too. A lot of people are playing with shorter shafts on drivers because the longer the shaft, the less control you have, right?
Yeah. How expensive are they? Have you seen? Are they priced as a driver or 3-wood?
That I don't have an answer to that.
I was say because clubs are getting more and more expensive. I mean, if you have the finances for it, sure. And if you're a club junkie, you might as well pick one up and explore with it. I'm all about that. If you can't afford one, I'd say either A, get better with your driver, B, add more loft to your driver, or if you pick up a 3-wood with less loft, get a strong 3-wood like that TaylorMade rocket balls that came out years ago. That white, that thing's still awesome. The TaylorMade white series one, where it was the rocket balls with the white head. Like Mickelson was using it years back off the tee. It was like one of the strongest 3-woods I think ever made. People were replacing that for their driver years back. It had to be like 7-8 years ago, maybe even more than that.
All right, so here's a different question.
Yep.
That you made me think of while you were saying that. Someone, your spouse, saying, "Hey, I'm going to buy you a present. What club do you want?" Or, "Okay, I have a budget for an expensive golf club," right? Where would you go with that? Would you, because people are like, they'll spend $400 on a driver, $450, $500 on a driver that they hit maybe 10 times in a round. And they'll like, I don't know if I can spend that much money on a putter. It's like, dude, minimum 36 times on your scorecard is your putter. You're going to use it, like as I think Titleist says, the only piece of equipment that is on every shot is the ball. Okay, so after the ball, where would you, if you had money to, and let's use the word invest on a golf club, where would you go with that? Would you advise someone to say, yeah, do it the putter?
I would go putter.
Yeah.
I would go putter just because, especially it's summertime, this time of year. I still love to play. I like to work on my own game, and nothing beats going out at the end of the day to Peacock Gap or out where we're at, or your local course, and being able to putt for 30 minutes, 45 minutes in the evening. If you don't have time to hit balls or not physically feeling up to hitting balls, you can still get a good 30 minute good practice session in of putting. Even at home putting in the wintertime. I think it's important to have a putter that you're going to look down to and which is that you're going to like, you're going to feel comfortable with. And I think it's fun to go down the rabbit hole of getting fit for a putter. What kind of lines do you like? Do you like a line? Do you like no line? Do you like 3 lines? Do you like a 2-ball? Just always exploring with putters, and it gets you out and experiment with different ones, and I make more putts with this, or that feels good, or I can't aim this one. I have a putter with no lines. I have the old TaylorMade, not old, well, I guess it's a bit old now, the TaylorMade Spider, the all black wood, no lines, because I just don't like seeing the line down. It makes my stroke feel too straight back and straight through. And so I'd say putter. Everybody's using that lab putter now. That's an investment. Do you have one? Yeah, I think that's like $700-800, but it's really cool. I mean, it feels amazing. See more
have you putt with a lab?
I have, yeah. I haven't been able to pull the trigger on it yet, but I understand why people are buying them. It's sweet. I love it, and it's so cool too because on their website you can design your putter. You can pick your lines on it. I don't know how much merit there is to the whole upgraded shaft and all that. I'd have to do some research, but and putters too. They age. You can have that thing for 10 years, and if you don't like it down the road, sell it. And you still see Scotty Cameron's going for crazy money that came out 10 years ago.
Right. So are you a blade or a mallet guy?
I go back and forth.
Do you really? How many putters do you have?
And actually, to be honest, not that many. I always end up lending them to friends. I probably have a lot. All my friends and my students have them. I do like some with a bit of toe hang, though. I don't like the face balance. Makes my stroke feel too straight back, straight through. So I definitely, even if it's a mallet, I do like my Spider's got a slight toe hang.
I know the audience is like, "Oh, Fred, don't do it, Fred, don't do it," because I've been pretty obsessed with lab putters recently, and I just went up to the factory and I hung out with the CEO and played golf with him and got a tutorial on my putter with him. And the whole idea of the face balance, toe balance is all marketing hype. I mean, what they have created, this invention of lie angle balance. Here I go. I'm sorry.
No, I saw a couple. Here we go with YouTube. I did see a couple of YouTube seminars or things with that. That I can't remember his name, the CEO of it, and he was talking about why it's
the revealer.
Yeah, and he was talking about. I think you have to play the ball a bit more forward in your stance too. I think you have to set up to it a slightly different way. which I don't think most people know that. And the ball can't be in the middle of your stance with that putter because obviously the shaft's in a different position in the head and the weight of it. So, I mean, what they're saying makes sense, right? Like,
yeah, and what they've designed.
And what they've
I mean,
designed,
it's amazing that you look at the head of that thing, and plus a lot of people don't like center shafted, which I always have. And
me too, actually.
The idea of untorque yourself is like, which is there's no torque that you have in a normal golf swing that you've got to try to make sure that you're on line to make sure, because if you hit it off the toe or the heel on a normal putter, you're not going to get the same reaction as you would if you hit it square in the sweet spot. But on the lab putters, it doesn't matter where you hit it on the face. It's going to go on the line that you're pointing at, which makes a huge difference. I've been really, they're like, Fred, stop it already.
There's a couple of different options too. I mean, I've putted with two of them. They both feel amazing. So.
Yeah, and is the size of the head, it looks so big you think it's so much heavier, but once you get the stroke going, it's effortless. You don't feel the weight at all, and you just feel great contact.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, I did it. I was trying not to. But when you talk, you brought it up.
I did. You know what? They're nice putters, so that would be one investment that would be worth it if you like the feel for it, for sure. You can always resell it.
Yeah. Oh, and there's a market now. You can do it. But it's so easy to get fitted for it. But they're now starting to go retail and use it. All right. Well, everybody, the Kelvin Kelley Golf Podcast, I'm going to promote that for you. Check it out. Have, instructor talking to instructors and hear what they have to say as opposed to golfers talking to instructors. And where else can we find you online? I know you don't want to promote.
No, it's fine. I mean, I do write articles for GolfWX and Golf.com occasionally.
Great.
So, I'd say I'm old school online, just not. Anyways, KelleyGolf.com, KELLEY golf.com is my website. And then I am on Twitter, KKelly_golf, or at capital K Kelly_golf is my Twitter. I do have an Instagram, but not much on there. Pictures of my dog. Well, maybe a little bit less now that she's got her own Instagram. So not much on there, but Twitter and my website, you'll see some stuff.
And just make sure it's KELLEY.
EY, yeah.
EY, Kelly Golf. Well, dude, it was great talking to you again. Loved sharing this information and love your feedback and your insights. Thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Fred. It was a cool discussion.
So there's this hilarious video going around on Instagram that you may have already seen since it has more than 1 million views in the first week since being released. Not sure who created it, but it works well for audio too, so I needed to share it with you. Let me set the scene. There are two women, probably in their late 30s, sitting alone in a nice restaurant next to large windows overlooking beautiful outdoor views, could even be a country club. The bill has just arrived, and the woman on the left begins.
It's on me.
What is going on? You're picking up brunch, you have a new designer bag. Did you win the lottery or something?
I've been making a ton of cash talking to men on OnlyFans.
You're getting naked on the internet for money.
Not OnlyFans, OnlyFan.
What is that?
It's a phone line where men can call in to talk to someone about their golf game.
Why would they pay for that?
When a man finishes playing a round of golf, all he wants is to talk to his wife or his girlfriend about it. But they don't care. That's where I come in. They pay me to listen. I'm literally their only fan.
What do they say?
What his score was, what his score should have been, how he should have warmed it longer on the range, a cart girl that he thinks is into him.
Oh, it's Oliver. He's one of my regulars. He says he's an 8 handicap, but in reality, he's probably a 15. This will be quick. Hey, Ollie.
3 birdies in a row.
Wow, that must be a new record for you.
Ooh, my hot dog's here.
Oh, you're only at the turn? Well, call me when you're done.
I love you.
That's it?
Simple as that. I mean, most of the time you just have to say, uh-huh. But if you get stuck, OnlyFans gives you this cheat sheet.
Nice bounce back. That's gonna happen out there? A bad day of golf is better than a good day at work.
Oh. Looks like a newbie.
I don't want to.
There's nothing to it, trust me.
Hello?
Hey, so I was playing the round of my life today. I was +2 through 7. And then I hit a sprinkler head on 8, and then my ball went into the lake, and then just the wheels fell off.
Bad break.
I know, right? I mean, and then my 5-iron somehow wasn't in my bag. You know that's my favorite club.
Slow golfers are the worst.
Oh, the worst, out of rhythm.
This is so easy.
Wait until August when Fan Fantasy comes around. It's this, but for fantasy football. A lot of injury report talk.
Even Tiger couldn't have pulled that off.
Love it. So I shared this on our family text thread this past week and got a great reaction from both my sons and their wives. The next day, my wife loved it too. Well, the next day after my round of golf, I called my wife to say I'm on my way home, and she asked me how my day was. I started telling her how I had 3 birdies on the front 9 when she interrupted and dryly said, "You should call that number." Couldn't find anything about OnlyFan on Google. Obviously, the search only produces info on OnlyFans, which I have no interest in checking out. But as someone wrote on Instagram, this could be a zillion-dollar business. Keep me posted if you're the one who creates it. This week's Golf Smarter ambassador, Paul White, is clearly a snowbird because he lives in Illinois, but his course is in Scottsdale, Arizona. Thanks, Paul, for playing through. Paul asked for the free link to Tony Manzoni's video of the Lost Fundamental, which was his gift just for sharing with us where he lives, where he plays, and which episode number this is. But after last week's episode, I've already received more requests from new ambassadors to receive a glove and glove storage compartment from Red Rooster Golf. You may want to do that too. When you sign up to be a Golf Smarter ambassador, you get a choice of 3 free gifts, including Tony Manzoni's video, a box of indestructible tees from Flight Path Golf, or the glove and glove storage compartment from Red Rooster Golf. All you need to do is introduce a future episode. Just write to golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com. I'll get back to you with some simple instructions on how to play. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for upcoming episodes, and I mentioned last week that I got a suggestion they wanted to hear from Jeff Mangum again, and from the Putting Zone, I immediately wrote to him. He wrote back. We recorded, and you're going to hear a full hour of Jeff's outrageous putting instruction, and always, can we say controversial? Jeff's a hoot, and he's going to be on next week. So please write to golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com or click on the Hey Fred button when you visit golfsmarter.com.